Disclaimer: the views expressed on this episode of Perspective Platoon with Prateek are solely the opinions of the host and the guest. The content of the conversation is not reflective of the institutions or establishments mentioned therein. Take all these opinions with a pinch of salt and a dash of lime if needed. Having a bit of a bad hair day, but we'll make this work. Namaskara, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're watching or listening, and welcome to this episode of Perspective Platoon with Prateek. My guest this week is Lisbeth Espino. Lisbeth and I, like most of my guests so far, met through the University of Central Oklahoma, and I believe we also took a physics class around the same time. So we used to talk quite a bit about physics and the professor that we took it with. In this episode, that was a bit of a tangent, my apologies. But in this episode, we spoke about a wide range of topics associated with working around children, having pets, and family. Family is a huge part of our lives, and it's existent in some way or another, be it the family of friends that we have around us or the biological families that we have. So in this episode, we spoke about the lessons that we've learned from them and much more, and I'm certain that there's a lot that you can relate to. So without further ado, I present to you Lisbeth Espino on this episode of Perspective Platoon with Prateek. Hey Elizabeth, how's it going?
Hi, Prateek. I'm doing great. It's been a very interesting, gloomy day.
It is pretty gloomy outside. Yeah, it is. It is. So before we get started, let the people know who you are, what some of your likes are, what some of your dislikes are, what some of your future aspirations are, and so on.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Lisbeth Espino. Most of my friends call me Liz. I am 25. Yeah, 25. I always forget exactly how old I am because you only say it a couple times a year. um, but I'm 25. I am a dog mom to a beautiful 90-pound fur child. I love when it's sunny, but not too hot, I guess you could say. Going on the weather today. I don't know what it is. I love it when it rains. I love animals. Some of the things I don't like. I hate when people drive slow in the fast lane. That was a fun thing this morning. So that's the first thing that popped into my head.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So yeah, I hate when people drive slow in the fast lane. What else? Some of my pet peeves. I don't really have a ton, I guess. I hate when people don't know how to read quietly in their head. I don't. Is that a thing?
You definitely would have hated me when I was a kid then, because I just read aloud every single time.
Well, see, I think that comes from working with kids. So I nanny for a family. I've worked with kids my whole life. As far as I can remember, starting when I was old enough to take care of children in the church nursery, I was always around kids. So I think that stems from being around children my whole life because they don't know how to read in their heads. So maybe that's where it's from. I don't know. Discovering new things today.
Yeah, no, because this one time we were in school, and one of our principals, was it our principal or super? I can't remember, but she was walking by the corridor of the building, and I was on my own bench, sort of reading something, and
Minding your own business.
minding my own business, and then because I think it was like the time they had given us time to sort of just sit down and study for an exam. So she walks up and then she calls me out of the room and she goes, "Look, you should try and read within your head a little more because it helps you conserve energy and so on. And
Conserve
also, you don't want to
energy.
disturb people." Yeah, I was like, "Okay, noted, cool." And and then I walked back in and probably ended up doing the same thing again. But who knows? I can't remember that part
Conserving
of it.
energy. I think that's the first time I've ever heard that as an explanation of reading in your head.
Yeah, no, because I mean, I get if I hope I'm not putting words into her mouth when this has happened. When did this happen? Like 10
If
years
she's
back?
listening.
Yeah, if she's listening. Was it 10 years back? What is time anymore, honestly?
Honestly, 2020, 2021, there's no concept of time. It can be Thursday on a Monday. It's fine.
Yeah. But she said that, and I was like, okay, I should maybe pay attention to this a little more. Because I also have the habit of sort of mumbling and just sort of creating random tunes while I'm just sitting down and doing nothing. So is that something that you don't like too?
No, I'm okay with that.
Okay. But in your time of working with kids, you mentioned something that you don't like. What is something that you do like when you work with kids?
Oh, what can I say about it? There's so much, or else I wouldn't have been doing it this long.
Yeah.
Just knowing that you can be the person outside of mom and dad that they trust. I'm very big on friendships and relationships, and I love being that person that someone can trust. Something about someone trusting you, I don't know if it just gives you a sense of not purpose but joy, I guess you could say. Someone trusting you even at such a young age, that they have no filter. If you've ever been around a child, children have no filter. They will tell you straight up what they think, and they don't see anything wrong with it. If you have something on your face, they'll tell you. What else do I love about children? How moldable they are. They are, especially the younger kids, they just have this awe about the world. Most of them haven't experienced anything that kind of dulls the world, I guess you could call it. I remember growing up, I think it was about age 9, maybe 10. Before then, everything in the world seemed super colorful and bright to me. I don't know if that's with you in your childhood, but like, I don't know. Everything just seemed so bright, almost had like the sparkle effect on Instagram, I guess you could call it. But it was just so full. They're full of life, and they're full of hopes and aspirations. And it's just amazing to hear children and what they want to do in life and how they want to get there. You could ask them what they want to be 2 days after each other. One day they'll be a mermaid, the other day they'll be a police officer, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just what they want. So
yeah,
I think that's what I love. What about you, Prateek? Do you like kids? Some
I
people
actually
like
do.
them. You do? Okay.
I do. I'm one of those people that do. I'm not a kid hater. Nothing against people who don't like kids or anything like that, but I'm just comfortable around kids more than I am around dogs, because I actually got bit by a dog once.
Oh no!
Yeah. So I mean, I've
Was
gotten
it
around
a little dog or a big dog? Oh, that face.
No, I'm trying to. Is it a? Can I call it a big dog? It was big in. Well, I can't remember the breed of the dog, to be honest.
Well, how old were you? Because if you were young enough, any dog is a big dog.
I was 14 or 13. Yeah.
Okay.
When that happened.
Okay.
I wasn't super young, but I was in my teens. Yeah. And this was when I was like, I had the habit of going out on strolls in the morning when I lived back in India. I mean, I still do on the weekends, but anyway, not the point. The dog started following me for some reason, and usually
you wanted to be your friend, Prateek.
I don't know. I really don't know. Like at that point in time, I wasn't a dog whisperer, so
saying now you are a dog whisperer, or
no, probably not. No, still no. But yeah, it just walked behind me, and I was wearing a hoodie with like the hood on because it was cold that morning, and like sometimes what I've noticed is, at least over there, the way the dogs are brought up, there is an element of suspicion when they see people walking around with like a hood on their head and
Got
so
it.
on. I don't understand. It's sort of like a safety thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think that sort of like freaked the dog out, and it just came. It didn't necessarily like grab onto my leg, but it sort of like gave me a bit of a peck with its teeth and ran away.
Oh.
Yeah.
In the leg. Oh my gosh. I would have been all kinds of dramatic at 13 or 14. I would have like rolled around and like limped back home.
Yeah.
Well, how do you feel about dogs now?
Well, I actually don't mind being around them as much. Initially, it takes me a second to sort of feel,
Warm
not
up to
feel.
them.
Exactly. There we go. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. It takes me a second to warm up to them. But once I do, I think I'm okay. Because recently I went to, not, this wasn't that recent. It
I
was
was gonna
probably
say
like a few
recently.
months
Where
back.
have you been?
No, this is a while back. At least in COVID times. uh,
Pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID, right? It was right around the time that COVID hit, actually, or slightly before
Oh,
that.
so like
So
March.
yeah, so we weren't necessarily still spooked out by it.
Got it.
Um, yeah, I went to a person's house and I was there to sort of, they asked me to stay there to sort of look after the house and take care while they were gone.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was there with the dog. The first day was a little weird, but after that, the dog would just come and sit beside me or sit on my lap. It was kind of cool. I think was it a Boston Terrier? I think it might have been.
Oh, they're like the cute
Yeah.
little with the little ears.
Yeah. It
Oh,
was really
they're
cute,
cute.
cute dog.
They're
But yeah,
cute.
I think that dog sort of helped me get over my fears a little. Um, but yeah, this is gonna take a different sort of interesting question. I mean, let me bring my thoughts together. The dogs, I guess they're
You're like,
freaking me
hold
out now
on.
too. Yeah, I think the dogs are spooking me right now too. Who knows?
Picturing the dog that bit you in your mind.
Probably am. Uh, but the one thing that I've noticed is that over here, dogs are treated a lot like family, which is one thing you
Mhm.
just mentioned when you introduced yourself too, is that it's part of your family.
Yeah.
Whereas back home, I don't want to say that they don't treat their dogs like family, but it's more like a way of having additional safety around the house more than
Yeah,
anything.
I totally understand that. Yeah. My family in Guatemala, my mom is Guatemalan.
Mm,
So I am Guatemalan.
mhm,
We got the privilege of visiting when I think it was the summer before 5th grade. Yeah, the summer before 5th grade. It's the only time I've ever been back to Guatemala, sadly. I love it, but we just haven't been able to go back. Um, so I was a little girl, and even then, I have a huge love for animals.
mm.
If I would have my way, I'd have like 5 different animals, 5 different dogs, and like find
Yeah.
a stray and take it home.
Mhm,
Um, but so we were staying at my aunt's house, and my aunt had 2 dogs. One was named Tarzan, and the other was named Clifford. I still remember their names. I can still picture their faces and everything.
mm,
But they were outside dogs. They don't let their dogs live inside with them. So
mm,
the way it's set up, it's like you have almost like a courtyard, I guess you could call it, and then you have the house inside. And the dogs would live in the courtyard
mm,
or outside. But they have like no collar, no tags. Everyone just kind of knows like who the dogs belong to. I don't
mhm,
know if it's like that back home for you. But they kind of just know who the dogs belong to. But everyone, like my cousins and my cousins' friends, they thought I was the strangest person because I would much rather sit in the courtyard picking
yeah.
fleas off of the dogs than go and play. And I'm like,
Mm,
I couldn't believe it. It was the first time that I had seen a different way of an animal human relationship. And I was
mm,
young and I was like, what is going on? Like, y'all don't take care of your dogs. But to them, like, they were being taken care of. Like, they had shelter, they had food. Um, but it was just so strange to me. And everyone thought I was so weird. And I will never forget that. I'm like, I'm much happier hanging out with the
mm,
dogs. It's fine.
mm. No, yeah, that is interesting because for me, as an outsider initially, and nothing against the people who are from here or who have that sort of thought process, I feel like they love dogs, which is great. Like appreciate the animals around you. Like they're living beings after all. But they're like, I hate kids. I'm like, huh. This connection of humans to animals is interesting. It's great that we have that connection,
Yeah. Hmm.
but why the hate towards a human to human connection? So you being someone who likes both babies or kids and dogs for that matter, why do you think that is that there is that sort of divide?
I I think it's mostly honestly, I want to say it's more in our age, like around our age group and maybe
Mm,
younger. I think a lot of times humans, well, 100% human relationships take so much more effort to
right.
begin with. So I think a lot of times, like, especially the younger, I don't want to say kids, but I feel like I'm getting old now, so I can say kids. The younger kids and the younger generations, they've been raised with such a non-interacting way. Like they weren't, like they weren't go outside and come back until the lights come on kind of thing. Or you'd spend all day outside, and not just in the summers. You'd like come home and drop your bag off at school or at home and then run outside to play with your friends. I
Right.
feel like now they've just got more screen time, online connections, which is like easier almost. Kind of like it's easy to interact with your dog. They don't talk back to you like they're well, yeah, they don't talk back. Well, sometimes my dog kind of whines when he's kind of being annoying, like he wants attention. But aside from the fact, it's that instant kind of thing. Like if you want to hop online and talk to a friend, you can. It's right there.
Right.
Like a dog is right there. Like if you want to interact with the dog, you can. And then when you're done, you can walk away. The dog's not going to, well, most of the time, the dog won't care that you stop petting it kind of thing. I think that's why a lot of people find that human to dog interaction better than human to human. It doesn't take as much effort. It's not as draining sometimes.
Interesting, because I think a lot of the culture itself, like we talked about earlier, the fact that you all are more welcoming to dogs or animals in general, of having them within the house, I think that also helps in a way, like in sort of building that relationship. But speaking of like sort of the online way of being able to connect to people, what are some of the positives and negatives for you? I mean, you probably brushed over the negatives a little, but what are three positives and three negatives that glare out to you?
For me personally, or just like in general for the population?
For you generally, what do you think?
Okay. I think I'll start with the positives. I think it's great that we as a society have been able to adapt. I think it just goes to show that like when we put our brains together for a single common goal, like we can do it. We can make it happen. And like that just goes to show with everything like corporations like going online. I know a lot of friends who work for companies like in bigger cities who they've just decided to stay remote work access. And I think that's great. So there's that. I think that that's been great, especially with everything going on right now. But that's one big positive. Just goes to show we can all work together for something.
Yeah.
And make it happen. I guess another positive for technology and being all of us together like this, I think it would have to be time. I know that's the only word that comes to mind. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense, but
no, it does.
Time.
It does.
Time to be able to spend more time with family. It kind of forced us to teach, or forced us to learn time management. So I think that's a big positive. It's teaching us how you can prioritize. That's what it is. That's the word I was looking for. Priorities.
Yeah.
Priorities and prioritize. Those are the two big positives. I guess for negatives, well, I think I'm a very people-oriented person. I love being with people. I love being able to talk to someone face to face. I think like the couple of times I've saw you on campus anywhere, I'd be like, hey, Prateek. I'd always stop and talk to my friends, even if I was running late for class. It was fine.
Yeah.
It was fine. I'd get there eventually. So I think that not having that face-to-face interaction time, especially for people who have that as a lifeline, honestly, their love language is physical touch or quality time. I don't think it's the same quality time-wise when you're sitting behind a screen than kind of interacting with someone. So I think that has been a big downfall. People are like, oh, I don't have to meet up with them for coffee. I can just call them and catch up, which is nice to be able to do. But I think it's also super important and valuable to sit face to face. I don't think anything technology wise could ever replace that. I think that's one of the major, just big things. It's just that feeling of isolation, even though you're surrounded, like via Zoom, like you're surrounded by people, but like you see all the faces on the screen, but it's just, sometimes it's still super isolating. You're like, well, they're there, but they're not really there. It reminds me of those commercials. I don't know do you watch a lot of TV, Prateek?
Not since I've moved here, more so YouTube and Netflix, I guess.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So we have like a smart TV with internet, which I'm pretty sure everyone does. If they still have cable, I don't know what they're doing. Get you some internet and a smart TV and you're set, saving all the money.
Yeah.
But so we have like a TV and an antenna for like local channels, weather, whatever. So when I'm watching the news, I'll watch I almost said ads, the commercials.
I mean, we call them ads back home, so I guess some people would understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, then I'll watch the ads / commercials. And then there's this one commercial. It's for a what's it called? I forget the name of the medicine in the commercial, but it's basically it's an antidepressant. In this one commercial, there's these people where they're going around in different settings, and they have like one of those it's almost like a prop that you take pictures with that has a face. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Is it like a selfie stick?
Yeah, it's almost like a selfie stick, but like hold on, how do I do this? So if this is like the picture, it's like it has a smiley face on it and they're just like holding it up. But like when they get home, they take it down and they're just like all kinds of worn out and tired and things like that. So that's what I think of right now with this day and age, with COVID going on and like technology being the only thing that connects us. I feel like a lot of people are struggling with that. They can relate to that commercial because you can check in on someone via Zoom or Skype or FaceTime. There's just so many different ways to connect with people, man. And they can be fine, but as soon as like you turn off the screen, no one really knows what's going on. So I think that's honestly like one of the big things that I'm not okay with right now, as far as COVID and technology. So yes, how do you feel right now with technology? You started a podcast in the middle of this. Way to go.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably one of the biggest boons is the fact that you can start a podcast or you can do whatever you want, even if you're 7 seas away. That is definitely a huge positive. I just want to say before I rattle on about my positives, for those of you listening in audio, Lisbeth was just holding a piece of paper over her face to sort of signify the face or the mask rather of how you feel a certain way being while you're outside compared to being inside. But yeah, going back to some of the positives, I think it's sort of enhanced the ability to be able to connect to people. And this episode is coming out after the one that I just recorded a few minutes back. And that one was with a person who is in New York, I believe, whom I met through Twitter.
Oh, that's so cool.
Right, exactly. So like, I think social media has enabled us to sort of be able to connect in that way. Wherein before you couldn't necessarily connect to people that easily. So it's created this, I don't want to call it a superficial connection, but it's created a connection with people.
Yeah.
But I do relate to what you're saying about we lose that sense of being around people. And I was just having the thought when you were saying that, are you an energies sort of person? Like you like the energy of people around you?
Yes. I do. I feel, I don't want to feel like I don't want to say or come across that I'm taking people's energy. That just sounds weird, like evil villain type. But I feed off of the energy in the room.
Mm.
But I'm very in short bursts, I guess you could say. Short bursts of being around a lot of special people. I something about it. It kind of lights a fire under your butt to do something with your life, I guess, or it fills you up. I don't know how to describe it. If there's people out there listening who know what I mean, I guess they could relate to that.
Totally. I get the concept of it, because what you were alluding to earlier was about not being an energy vampire, because that's what
Yes.
like people who sort of tend to suck out the energy of the room. But I think if there's an equal transfer of energy, you're not necessarily being a leech, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, you're exchanging energy rather than taking one's energy. And yeah, totally. I think being around people, and just when you're having conversations with people, you can sort of feel that energy of that person. Speaking of energy of people, do you feel like you can read energy of people, read the energy of the people around you?
I think so. By no means am I contacting the other side.
Yeah.
Or things like that. But I feel like once I've developed a relationship with someone, or even just like hung out with them a couple times where they're not really your friends, but they're like your acquaintance friends.
Right.
I feel like I can get a pretty good read on people. A lot of my friends, they're always, I don't want to say hesitant on introducing new people that they've brought into their lives, because they know that I will not scrutinize. That has like a negative connotation to it, but I will look into them a little deeper than I would just some normal person that I like met up for coffee or something like that. But I do feel like if my friends are feeling down, like I can feel that. I can feel when they need like a little pick me up or just someone to listen. Because a lot of times I feel like we do a lot of talking and not listening, which is something a lot of working with kids has taught me. They will, if you just sit and listen, they will tell you everything under the sun. And it doesn't even have to have any meaning. It's just how they express their feelings. It's just they talk.
Yeah. No, totally. I get that. And you said something about feeling the energy of a person when they're slightly low. And how does that help, or how does that not help from your perspective? Do you think it's a double-edged sword in a way?
I think it is. I definitely think it is a double-edged sword, especially when you're around like a large group of people. Obviously, like not any time recently, but when you're around like a large group of people and you can feel like it's the energy is just starting to slowly drain. I think it's very exhausting. That's why I said I love being around people, but in short bursts, because it's it takes a very emotional, mental toll when you're around friends that you can feel are starting to drain, not necessarily themselves, but out of you to fill themselves. I think that's when sometimes you have to set healthy boundaries. Yeah, exactly.
You
And
have to
sometimes,
distance yourself. Yeah.
exactly. And sometimes those conversations can be hard, which is why I think it's a double-edged sword.
No, I totally feel that, because sometimes I come out of conversations feeling tired, like not conversations like this, but conversations in person. No,
I wouldn't judge you if you did, Prateek. It's okay.
no, no. I mean, honestly, the ability to be able to do something like this, and props to technology for that, it's really helped in a lot of ways in terms of being able to get to see or get to learn different perspectives of people, and at the same time sort of share my own through that sort of channel. So it's definitely been a lot more positive for me, and I don't lose my energy doing this. I can definitely sit and record multiple ones like I'm doing today. So, I definitely feed off of it. But yeah, like sometimes when I've come out of conversations, I've just felt some weird sense of fatigue. Like I'm not
Yeah.
physically tired, but mentally I'm just like, huh, I
You're
don't want
like,
to
that
do
was
anything
different.
anymore.
Yeah. I don't want to say like the joy has left you, but it's
Yeah.
like, have you ever been like just so tired you want to take a nap and it's like sunshine and birds are singing outside type of thing? I feel like
Hmm.
that's a good way for me anyways to visualize how drained I sometimes feel. It's
Hmm.
like shutting the curtains on things. I don't know.
Hmm.
That's just how in my mind
No,
I see
that's fair. I mean, that's how you look at it, and that makes a lot of sense to me too. So there's nothing wrong about that. Um, you said something else that was really intriguing. You said that some friends are worried that you might, for the lack of a better term, overanalyze their friends.
it. Yes.
Um, can that not, well, maybe not overanalyzing, but looking into the deeper sense of who that person is, can that not be a good thing sometimes? Because I think that can help you connect better, right? Or do you think differently about that?
I yes, I think it can help me connect deeper with them. Um, but I think I'm very I guess I could use the word protective. I'm very
Mm,
protective of my own energies, and I
mm,
think that extends out into my friends' energies.
mm,
I
mm,
grew up with one sister, so I didn't really have like a huge family or anything. Um, and like my sister, myself, and my mom were the only three here in Oklahoma. And then we have some family in California, and then the rest of the family is in Guatemala.
right.
So I think I'm very protective of my own energies and my
Mm,
friends' energies because growing up in such a small family, I kind of like adopted my friends as my family.
mm, mm,
So, whenever they bring someone new into the fold and I like don't know them, I always want to make sure that they're beneficial to their life and their goals and their own energies just
mm,
because I've shared like experiences with them. I've lived life with them kind of thing. So
right.
I know like I lost my train of thought.
No, but I
um,
totally feel you. Yeah.
so having lived like experiences in my life with them, I want to make sure that the people they're bringing into the fold are not going to kind of, I guess, for lack of a better term, harsh their energies or disrupt their
Mm,
energies. Um,
right.
I think being able to meet someone and talk to them and kind of feel out their what they're about, I'm more I hold their intentions and their to a higher standard. Um, and I think
Mm,
that's something that I need to work on sometimes because I think I can be a little too harsh.
mm.
But that's something I'm working on.
Fair enough. There's always something that we're all working on. Um, but I'm just curious to know, again, if you're comfortable sharing, you don't need to name any names or anything, but
John Doe.
sure, yeah, John Doe. Who is John Doe? Who knows? Um, but yeah, whenever you've had these sort of altercations where you're trying to be protective of your friends, do you feel like you were a little too over analytical, and turns out that that person was actually not as not the way that you perceived them to be? Let's put it that way. Have you had those sort of
um,
experiences, or has your instinct always been right?
well, not to like toot my own horn or anything,
Yeah.
but I can't like specifically pinpoint a person that I've been wrong about.
Okay.
Um, sometimes it has taken longer
Mm-hmm.
than what I expected for the person to, I guess, show their true colors.
Mm.
But in the long run, I feel like I haven't I don't want to say been proven wrong, because I would, by all means, I would love to be proven wrong. I hate to be the bearer of bad news all the time, I guess, or the person that seems to always be pessimistic, because I'm not a pessimistic person, I would like to believe. But I can't think of one single person right now, Prateek.
No, it's okay. And I think there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, because we should be able to set the boundaries, right? I mean, of course, we need to be open to people. We need
Yes.
to give them that opportunity to sort of present themselves and be themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if you feel like it's going to head in the wrong direction, you need to be able to put that fence up and be like, nah,
Yeah.
nowhere near me, kind of thing. So I don't think that that's wrong. But I do think that I think people can perceive it to be a bad thing at times, because you're not letting yourself be around that person for as long as they think that you should be around that person to be able to get to know them better.
Yeah.
That was a very convoluted way of saying it. But yeah.
I followed.
Yeah. No,
Totally.
because I think a lot of the times, or well, let me take that back. I think we our ability to sort of gauge people's energy is very different.
Yeah.
So your friends probably, I mean, not to like poo on them or anything, but I don't think that maybe they don't necessarily gauge energy as well or as quickly as you do. So,
Yeah.
which is why sometimes you see that and sometimes they don't. But have you ever had them come back to you and be like, "Yeah, you were right"?
A couple of times.
Uh-huh.
I try not to bring up after the person has shown colors or anything.
Yeah.
After, I try not to bring it up, but in my own head, I'm just like, I knew this person was not right. Something was off. But that's a dialogue I'm having in my head
Yeah.
with myself. But sometimes it's taken some time, and I have to step back and realize they are my friend. They are their own person. I can only give my words and what I feel and what I see based on their actions. And then kind of just leave the rest up to them, which is kind of hard for me to do. I don't want to say I'm a control freak. But I have a hard time letting go when I know, or letting go of control when I know someone I love, or like a very special friend, or any friend in general, can potentially be hurt.
Yeah, and I think there's nothing wrong with that, and you're not being judgmental in a way of, as in, at least from what I can tell, you're not being judgmental of the people themselves necessarily. You're just sort of assessing how they could be for your friends, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily going around and telling people, look, I mean, at least again, from what I know.
No, I'm not.
Yeah. You're not going around and telling people, yeah, don't be friends with A, B, and C. He or she is bad. You're not doing that. So
No.
yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with being able to sort of see that something smells fishy.
Yeah.
Or well, you can't see smell. You can only smell. But you can
Sometimes
only,
you can see if it's bad enough.
I guess so. But yeah, you can smell it sometimes, which is why you want to be protective about your friends or so on. But speaking about being protective, again, if you're comfortable sharing, do you think it sparks from a place of just the sort of connection that you like to have with people? And can that be a bad thing?
I think so.
Mm.
I think me being protective, again, like, I think it just goes back to family.
Mm.
So growing up, I just had me and my sister and my mom. So I think that's where it might have gotten to be protective. So my mom is a single mom. She raised my sister and I by herself. So growing up, when Father's Day would roll around, my sister and I, we'd make cards for my mom. We'd write Happy Father's Day and give it to her, because she was an amazing mom, still is.
Yeah.
So she was our father and mother. Wow, I can't speak. So I think watching her struggle and fight every day to put me and my sister first. Wow. I didn't think I'd get this emotional. Whoa, Prateek, what are you doing to me?
Nothing. I don't mean to make you emotional. It's just because I think behind all of the things that we do externally, there's a lot internally that sort of influences it.
Yeah.
Because there, there's a lot of plates spinning for us to be able to do the things that we're doing. So it's just it's that nuance that I think we tend to lose when we see things on social media, which is the big negative that I see from my perspective. Just going back to that thing that we were talking about earlier, we lose that sense of nuance of being able to see what motivates people to do what they're doing. And not necessarily in a bad way or in a good way, but just in the sort of way of what motivates them. Because to you it might seem bad, but that's because of your frame of mind or the frame that you are setting that you think those people should be abiding by.
Yeah.
So it can get very convoluted, like that statement that I just made. in terms of being able to not be judgmental of people and just be like, okay, I guess there's something that motivates this, which is why they're doing it, and so on.
I think just being more aware, I guess, of the reasons subconsciously that people do the things they do. You're right. Like, you don't mean to make me emotional. It's just sometimes that's how I am. I think
I'm an emotional person too. But
okay, me too. I was like, I cry for everything. I don't know what it is.
No, I'm an emotional person too.
Sad tears. I think we feel everything in a bigger sense, or a bigger wave, I guess you could call it. Me and visuals today. Just like a bigger wave of feelings, I guess you could call it. But yeah, so I think that's why I am more protective. Seeing my mom fight for us every day and to put us first. So I think I'm just protective in the sense that I know that, wow, trying to put together words is hard.
Hey, it's okay. I've been there too.
I'm like, what words am I putting together to make a sentence? I'm protective because my mom was protective of us. And just knowing that because of her protectiveness, I guess you could say, I've become the person that I am. It's allowed me the opportunities that I've had. So I think it comes from wanting the best for us. And I think that translates into me wanting the best for my friends and family. Just I'm wanting to create a space for them that they can flourish to their best potential without all the added extra harshness of the world.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, totally. I can relate to that, or I can agree with that 100%. What helps you build that awareness? Is it you being in the moment or certain practices in your life? What is it that helps you build that awareness?
I like to I describe myself as an extroverted introvert.
Same, yeah.
I love being around people and I love feeding off their energies and just, I guess you could call it vibing. But I also, I like to spend a lot of time alone. So if you've ever like seen a person out at the theater by themselves watching a movie or having dinner at a restaurant by themselves pre-COVID, that was me. I was like, oh yeah, I'm totally okay with like going
I am
to a
too.
restaurant and eating by myself. I don't think there's anything weird with that.
Right.
So I guess just being able to be okay with the silence of being alone, and kind of, I guess, training my thoughts to kind of quiet. I'm always busy. I'm always have something going on. So I think it helps to be, for me anyways, when I can find a couple of moments to be alone and be by myself to kind of almost unload or download, I guess in your sense, download the thoughts of the day, and kind of just go over them and analyze and then let them go so that I can be ready for the next time. Because it can be like 5 minutes in a day, and so much, say it's noon and so much has happened before noon, like slow drivers in the fast lane.
Yeah.
But kind of just taking that time to let those thoughts go in quiet, to just be able to be still, to just realize that even though everything around you is moving at, it seems like such a high pace, you can find moments in the quiet. And I think that's what helps me be more aware of other people, because they don't know that I'm paying attention to them when no one else is. They think that everyone is involved or paying attention to, say, like, in everyone else in the group or what the group is doing. But I like to individually, this makes me sound like such a creep, I like to individually watch all the people, and kind of just focus in on like them and what they're looking at or their facial expressions. And I don't know, I guess I'm just a people person, people watcher. Put that in my bio, I guess. I don't know.
No, I can relate to you in that sense because, well, okay, before I say that, are you the kind of person that says, yeah, I mean, whatever, I don't care, kind of thing, and do you just move on? Or are you the person that lets people know that, okay, you are that sort of person that can be silent and not necessarily show that you are looking at the person in front of you, but then you are? Are you that kind of person that makes it known, or are you just kind of, yeah, I'm like, whatever, I don't care, and you move on? Because I'm that kind of person, and I say that I don't care, but I do try to, like, I mean, I'm not trying to make this about myself, but we're just trying to get to the question. No, but still, I'm talking to you today, so I just wanted to ask, like, do you make it known sometimes that you look at people, or like, again,
I'm
not, I don't,
analyzing their energies, kind of thing.
yeah, I was gonna say, I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but
Yeah. I think it just depends sometimes on the situation. For sure, if they're feeling, if I can sense that something is wrong, or if I can see that like just something is off, like I don't know if you've ever been with some friends and like maybe it's like a forced smile, or that they just don't seem completely there that day or something, then yeah, I definitely want to be like, hey, like, is everything okay? Like, how's your day been? Like, something just as easy as that. You'd be surprised. Like, sometimes you can ask someone, like, how's your day been? And I know a lot of times in passing, you're like, oh, hey, how are you? And the other person's like, oh, great. And you never skip a beat in your walk and you're like passing.
Yeah.
But I think you'd be surprised when you genuinely take the time to ask someone how they're doing, the floodgates that can be opened sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think, yes, just depends on the situation. Sometimes I can sense, like, I know when someone's not, maybe maybe sometimes it's just the way I'm thinking, but just like they don't want you around, or you sense or you feel as if they don't, then sometimes I feel like you can just, that should always be addressed, because half the time it's just you in your head. So I feel like you should always attempt to kind of make it known, be like, hey, like, are you needing some space? Or like, because if you don't ask, you don't know. That's just as simple as it is. If you don't ask, you don't know. You don't have any concrete facts. So that's how I feel about that.
Because, yeah, I think a lot of the times it is that lack of communication or miscommunication that leads us to sort of be all in our heads about, oh, I think this is why that is happening, or et cetera, your thoughts have the ability to take you into a loop. of like just thinking about stuff that probably isn't even crossing the minds of the people that you're thinking about.
Yeah,
So it's really
100%.
interesting. It's interesting how that works. But you explained your sort of the source for your awareness, if you will, and I was just curious to know: do you meditate?
So I don't meditate in the sense where I sit and I like lay out some crystals or maybe like read a book kind of thing, because there's a ton of podcasts that help you with meditation. For me, I guess it's a form of meditation.
Yeah.
I kind of just like to sit anywhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the ground. It can be like sitting on my bed or just in a chair. And I kind of just like to sit in the silence and let the thoughts kind of melt away. Yeah. So in a form of meditation. Yeah, for sure. And then I quote unquote meditate, I guess. I don't know if what is meditation, honestly. It's just a variation. Everyone has their own sense of meditation and their own way of doing it, which is amazing. I think it just goes to speak of who we are as a human race. But yeah, that's my form of meditation, I guess you could call it. And then yeah. So do you meditate, Prateek?
I actually do. I took it up as a habit, I want to say 8 months back or 9 months back. I have meditated before as a child. Not child, but like when I was in my teens, for a brief moment of time. But then after that, like, I
Was it
turned into a
before or
teen and
after
I
the
gave up.
dog incident?
It had nothing to do with the dog incident, but it was around the time. It was around the time of the dog incident, but it had nothing to do. Like they didn't have any sort of correlation. But yeah, like I think everything that you just said there sort of was like, okay, this seems like there is like some principles of meditation involved, which is why I thought I should ask.
Yeah.
But no, that's cool. Like, yeah, because I think being meditative is mostly about being able to like be in silence and just sort of be with your thoughts. And in some way, some people also describe this to be as a way of being your own therapist, in the sense that, you sit down and you sort of try to resolve your problems yourself. I mean, I'm not saying in any way that don't go out to a therapist. Do like seek help if you need to,
Yes,
because
please.
it's very easy to draw conclusions with a line that you say. So, like I think it's a way of self help, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Which
I
is
think
why
a
I thought
lot
I
of
should.
people have found some way of self-help, self-care, especially with the crazy times that we've had, which I think is one of, it's horrible to say the benefits of COVID with everything that's happened and the people who've lost lives and just everything going on. But I like to be the type of person who sees things or tries to see things from different perspectives so that it's not all doom and gloom, I guess you could say. Or I want to be the person who's can hold more than one point of view at a time. So I think prefacing with all of that, I think one of the benefits of COVID and not being able to go out with friends and people, it's kind of forced people to be with themselves, and kind of look in and see what areas they need help with, and finding ways to help themselves via therapy, via speaking to someone, or just kind of finding a new way of like meditating. Or some people do that through adult coloring books, which are really fun. I do have a couple of those. They're great. So I think that's one of the benefits. There's not many with COVID and the pandemic, but I think it's good to look and see where you can find the bright spots in the darkness.
Of course. Yeah. No, I agree with you. That I try to be, I mean, I am that kind of person too. Like sometimes even when I'm feeling sort of low, where I'm like, why is this happening to me? I try and sort of look at the bright side. and, be like, okay, sure, this didn't go the way that I wanted it to go, but there's something I learned that I could probably do better. So, totally, like, I agree with you in that sense that this quarantine time, if you will, has given us the ability to sort of go inward and sort of analyze some of our shortcomings, if you will.
Yeah.
I
agree.
Yeah. Before we transition in towards like the latter stages of the podcast, again, like if you're not comfortable sharing, that's totally fine. But I wanted to ask you, if there were 5 lessons you had to pick out from your single mother, what would that be?
5 lessons. I guess
I know it's a different tangent, but I was just curious to know.
No, you're okay. Lessons as in like maybe like takeaways or
Yeah, like if there's something that you feel, or 5 things that you feel like you've seen in your mom that you wish to inculcate in yourself as a person for the rest of your life.
Well, okay. So I think the one that stands out the most to me immediately when I think of that, don't let anyone ever make you feel like you don't belong somewhere because of your background. I think that would be the biggest one. If you fought to be somewhere, not physically, obviously, but if you have fought and worked hard to be somewhere, don't ever make any, don't let wow, I can't speak. Don't let anyone ever make you feel like you haven't earned that or achieved that or deserve to be there. So definitely, I think that would be the top one. I think the second one would be don't be afraid to ask for help. You can sometimes feel like you're Superwoman or Superman and like you don't need anyone's help and you got this, which is totally okay to feel like that. You should feel empowered.
Yeah.
Don't feel so empowered, you start to feel overwhelmed. So I think definitely reach out and ask for help. And it can come from the most unlikely places.
Yeah.
And then let's see. I'm like trying in my head, I'm like thinking of different scenarios where I like have learned something from my mom, which I've learned a lot. Not to say I haven't learned a lot from her, because I have. I think the third thing.
No worries. Yeah, take your time, think about it. It's okay, because I think sometimes it takes a second to verbalize the thoughts. So no worries.
It's a whole lifetime, and then you've got to put it together into words.
Yeah.
The first 2 were super easy. I think the third thing I would have to say would be work. Like the one word that comes to mind is work. My mom has always worked. Always. She's never not worked. Maybe like 1 to 2, sometimes 3 jobs. So working is like the one thing that I can think of. It's like, no matter what, even if you feel like you can't do anything or you can't find something to do, you are more than you're more capable than you know. You have more to offer, more to bring. So just don't give up. You have to continue working every day for what you want. So I think that's definitely the third thing. The fourth thing, wow. The fourth thing I would have to say is love everyone. My mom, growing up, I can't remember a time where she didn't love on my friends like they were me. Or I can't remember a time where she hesitated kind of to help my friends or even help her own friends. She never hesitated in lending a helping hand to someone or loving someone. So I think that's one of the, if I had to take away from my mom's life or her teachings and experiences, would be to love everyone. Love everyone as hard as you can for as long as you can. I think the last one. Wow, this is hard. Prateek, you better start thinking about your 5 things that you've learned.
Sure, yeah, I can, yeah, I'll think about it while you're thinking about it too.
We can think together.
Sure, yeah, we can. Maybe that exchange will pop something up.
Go. Let's see. The 5th thing I would have to say to take away from my mom, or the lesson that I would take from my mom. I don't know. I really don't. I think I have 4.
It's okay. It's okay.
I think that encompasses everything.
Mm-hmm.
She's a very loving woman. She's a very hardworking woman, but she's also a very, like, I don't want to say a hard woman, because that just, she's very, very tender, but she's also very, she's very strict. So I think holding yourself to a higher standard would be the last thing. Definitely. That was the last thing. There it is. See,
there it
speaking is. Of brings out all these thoughts. So yeah, hold yourself to a higher standard, but make sure that standard is flexible. Don't make it so rigid it's impossible.
Right.
We're all humans. We're all flawed. So I think definitely being able to bend a little and still holding yourself to a higher standard and pushing yourself without a doubt, but don't push so hard you break.
Right.
Yeah. So I think those are my 5 things. Those are definitely my 5 things.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, that really is. Oh, you want me to give my 5? Sure. Okay. Well,
it doesn't have to be your mom. It can be your dad. It can be a family member.
I would say from both my mom and dad together. The one thing, maybe it's gonna sound like a cop out because you said the same thing, but one thing that I've learned is hard work, because I've seen them grow themselves as people through the effort that they've put in. Because I mean, I'm grateful for the fact that I've been able to go to another country altogether and to be able to study here. Because it's not an opportunity that a lot of people get, and that credit goes to them, because like I wouldn't have even imagined, like 5 years back, or not 5 years back, 7 years back, that I would be here, because it's going to be 5 years in December since I've been here. So, and it was their hard work. It was their effort that they put in to sort of give myself and my sister a better life. That's the reason that I'm here, in terms of being able to go away from home and be able to sort of pursue a career and pursue my dreams and all that sort of stuff. So that is definitely one thing that I've taken away from them. Because, again, not to toot my parents' horn, I can't toot their horn, but both my parents came from difficult backgrounds. My dad came from a spot where, I mean, he's told me this story. He used to say that his mom didn't have enough for herself to eat, like my grandmom, and she would just feed them and call it a night, So like he's seen those days, and for him and for my mom to be able to like join together and like work to their fullest to make sure that their kids don't see those days, I think that's something that you definitely take away, in terms of visualizing the fact that it's not impossible for you to go out and do anything.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It is possible for you to go out and do anything you want.
I totally understand what you meant. Yep.
yeah. I might have phrased a word or two wrong there, but like you can work your ass off and get somewhere. So that's definitely one thing. The other thing that uh, the second thing I would say is the commitment that they have towards each other. Because, and I mean, this is mainly a part of Indian culture, I guess, wherein like families or marriages are usually arranged, and sometimes within those marriages you can see some cracks. Not to say that I've seen any cracks in anybody's marriages, because I don't have a microscope of my own to be able to see that. But I feel like in the time that I've lived with my parents and lived away from them, sure, everybody has their hiccups, and they've had their own hiccups too, but they've been able to sort of do what's right for them and do what's right for the family and keep going. So, I would say commitment is another thing. Um, third thing, the third thing, I guess, would just be, you know, like being for each other, being there for each other, rather. Because from my mom, mainly, like whenever she would work and come back from work, she would still come back and sit down with me to do my homework, or sit down with my sister and be there for her to do her homework. Didn't care a jot the fact that she was tired after coming back from work, and she would sit down and she would talk, and it's things like that like sort of stick with you after all. It's not the things that they bought you when you were 5 years old, or the things that they bought you when they were 10 years old.
Yeah.
It's sort of these lessons that you sort of pick out while you grow up, right? So yeah, that's definitely another thing. Maybe the fourth thing, I guess, would be my mom's openness to sort of hearing me out. I guess it's similar to the third one, but it's
Similar but different. No,
similar but
totally
different, right? Similar but different. This is gonna sound really weird because I've said it in 2 podcasts already, so it feels like I'm trying to repeat the same thing. But no, my mom is open enough to talking to me about anything that I have to share. She might not agree with what I have to say, but she's still willing to listen. She's still willing to hear me out. Um, be it the girl problems that I've had, which are few and far between. I've barely had any, but no, because I've never been in a relationship. So not
Yeah.
to say that people in relationships are riddled with problems. I think everybody's people are in happy relationships. So
Relationships are hard in general. That's why they take work to maintain them.
very well said. Yes. So it's stuff like that. Like I think my mom is very much open to hearing me out, and so much so that when talking to her, I got so emotional that I started crying. This was probably a month back or so. So, things like that. That's probably the fourth thing. And the fifth thing, what would the fifth thing be? See,
See,
just like
it's
you,
not
I'm
as
struggling for
easy.
the fifth thing.
Not as
Yeah.
easy.
It's not as easy. No, it's not. It's not. It's definitely not. Because, you tend to, you try to piece together everything that you've lived through, like you said.
Yeah, it's like a movie reel in your head.
Right. Totally. I think, well, I guess I could put it this way. I think them instilling faith, or like the practice of religion, however you want to put it. Because I think for me, and don't get me wrong, I've had my moments where I've not been um, committed, I guess, to the relationship that we have with the universe or with God or whatever people like to call it. Um, but they've helped me sort of see that side in a lot of ways, and they've they've been with me in this journey where I've been able to notice some things that I wasn't noticing, be it through faith or whatever. So, that's definitely the fifth thing I would say. Yeah. Faith.
I love it. I love hearing how as we've grown up, we've learned things from our parents without them sitting down and giving us a PowerPoint of it or anything. It's just
Right.
just we as children in general, we're sponges.
Mm-hmm.
We pick up what we see modeled, what we see practiced. And I think a lot of times those are the pillars of who we are, is
Right.
these lessons that our parents have instilled in us without us even realizing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, not to say that we've not had our hiccups. We sure have. Like, I've been yelled at. I've been smacked with a belt,
Oh my
all
gosh,
that sort of stuff.
trust me, we've all been through a rebellious stage. My mother
Right.
watched me drill my screen into my window in high school. So fire hazard, but it happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So like stuff like that. Like I've been whacked by my dad for doing something wrong too, So like, all of that has happened, but looking
There
back
are
on those days, exactly. I think it's sort of like when you look back on it, you might think that that's not the best way to sort of deal with it. And sure, like to each their own. Everybody might have their opinion about that, but they saw that to seem right to be able to put you back on your path. So, I'm not saying if it's right or wrong, but it's helped in some way to help me get back onto my path.
Yeah.
Geez, I'm saying everything in such a convoluted way today. I don't know why.
It's just the weather.
Probably so. And maybe the bit of lack of sleep too. Who knows? But
Either or, it's a toss up.
right, exactly. But yeah, before I get into more convoluted stuff, let's head into the latter stage of the podcast where
Is this where you ask me the questions?
yeah, like they're pretty simplistic. They're not too bad, or they're not too hard. It's a segment called Bish Bash Bosh, where basically I give guests 5 words, and for each word I ask my guest to sort of give me 3 words or 3 phrases that come to their mind. So, for example, if I was to say dogs, what are the 3 things that were to come to your mind? That kind of thing.
Okay.
So these 5 words like are sort of principles in terms of me starting the podcast. So, which is why I like asking people this to sort of get that different perspective of what they're thinking about. So yeah, the first does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. I got this.
Okay, cool. Kind of like word association. So
Okay.
yeah,
I can do that.
Yeah. So the first word is differences. What comes to your mind when I say the word differences?
Differences. I think immediately when I think of differences, I think of fear. I think a lot of people have a lot of fear when it comes to people and ideas and that are just different from them. I also think of openness, open-minded, open-hearted. I think we have to take that fear and not necessarily embrace it, but be open to understanding where this fear comes from, of the fear of different people and ideas and cultures. So fear, openness, and and I think uniqueness would be my third one. Because even though there are differences, some of those differences can make, what am I trying to say? You can be unique and be different, but it doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be standoffish. It doesn't have to be gaudy or anything. You can be unique and be I don't want to say okay, that's not what I'm trying to say. But
you can be yourself.
Yes, you can be yourself and be unique, and still be I lost my train of thought with that.
No, you can be different and unique, and that's not a bad thing. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
Yeah. There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah, it just takes a second. It just takes a second for it to come back, but it comes back. Been there, done that. There was a time when I actually forgot the second word that I had to say.
Oh no!
You to, like for on one of the episodes. So yeah, it's
commonplace.
Now? No, I have it. I've not memorized it, but I know them. It's just that sometimes, yeah, you have a bit of a brain fart, and then you're like, oh, what? Yeah. So, but yeah, the second word before I lose it is nuance. What comes to mind when I say the word nuance?
Nuance. So like small differences, nuance.
Yeah, like differences, like
Okay.
there's gray. It's not all black and white. There's like a middle
Um,
ground. Yeah, that sort of stuff.
I think creativity.
Okay.
Um, I think of creativity in the sense that it takes different perspectives
Mm,
to even have nuances. But it takes creativity to be able to find solutions for things. I think it takes creativity to create, obviously,
mm,
creativity. So I think creativeness in a way to not deal with nuances, but to recognize them and be aware of them. Um, I think of nuances. Is this the word that everyone gets tripped up on?
It's happened a few times, yeah, but it's okay. Like if you only have one word, it's okay. That's not a problem. We can pass on to the next word. But yeah, it's up to
Um,
you.
I think that's all I have for nuances.
Okay, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. The third word is learning. What comes to your mind when I say the word learning?
Oh, this one's easy. I love this. So when I think of learning, the first thing that comes to mind is never ending.
Mm,
I love learning. I think
mm,
learning and knowledge and schooling is one of our biggest, I don't want to say weapons, but our biggest, for lack of a better word, weapon
mm,
against ignorance in the world, against
mm,
staying stuck in current situations. It can be joy. It can bring people
mm,
joy, it can bring you knowledge, it can bring you power sometimes. Um, but it's never ending. Learning is never ending. It should always be a lifelong thing. You can never be too old to learn something new.
right.
Um, and you shouldn't. You shouldn't feel like you're too old to learn something new. Or I
Mm,
think learning is never ending. That's the first word for sure. Um, and then I think of challenging because it is
mm-hmm,
learning and can be challenging to even have access to it, to be able to continuously motivate yourself to do it or to
mm,
achieve it. It can be challenging. Um, and then I think of rewarding.
mm,
Like I said, learning should be a lifelong thing. It can, to me, learning is joyous. I find them as synonyms.
mm-hmm,
But rewarding, you're when you learn something new, you don't know what you're capable of until
mm,
you've learned it and mastered it. Um,
mm,
and it can be rewarding when you go to college and get a degree. You've learned all of this. There's a sense of pride. It can be rewarding, or even just having the knowledge to teach someone else. It can be something as
mm,
simple as tying your shoes.
mm-hmm,
Um, or zipping up a jacket. If you don't have that knowledge, you haven't previously learned that, you won't be able to pass it on or teach someone else. So I
mm.
think there's a sense of reward and in fulfillment in learning and knowledge. So those are my three things. That
Cool.
one was an easy one. I like that one.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Because, we are learning every time. We're all sponges. So like you said, to just rephrase what you said earlier. So, yeah, totally. I agree with that. The fourth word is empathy. What comes to your mind when I say the word empathy?
Empathy. Wow. I don't know why I think of sadness when I think of empathy. Maybe I've just only had situations that are empathetic. Is that a word?
Yeah, empathetic is a word. Yeah.
Maybe I've only been in situations where I've been empathetic or someone has been empathetic towards me that are sad, I guess. But
Mm-hmm.
that's the one that comes to mind. Um, I think also with the word empathy, I think of closeness.
Mm,
Um, I think you can't feel empathy for someone's situation if you haven't been in that. Well, obviously, if you haven't been through it, but you feel a sense of closeness when you're going through something, knowing that you're not alone, and that you can not rely, but you can lean on someone, and they can show you that you're not alone. So I think of closeness, sadness, closeness. The last thing I think of for empathy. What do I think of?
Again, like I said, if that's the only thing that's coming to your mind, that's totally fine.
I look in the air for words.
You never know. Sometimes it might just be hiding somewhere.
Pop out.
Yeah.
No, okay. I think I do have one for empathy. The last word. When I think of empathy, I think of family. I don't think anyone really knows you like your family. And that can be chosen family. That can be the family that you're related to by blood. But I think there's a select group of people on this earth that know you sometimes better than you think they know you, or that you know yourself. So I think of family when I think of empathy, because you've lived through life with them. They're going to understand most times where you're coming from or your point of views. So I think of empathy. I think of family. Not empathy.
No, yeah, totally. Hey, yeah, you were associating empathy with family, so
there we go.
There we go. Right, exactly. And for the last word for this segment, it is similarities. What comes to your mind when I say the word similarities?
When you say similarities, when I think of similarities, I think of differences. You can't have similarities without first seeing what makes you different. It's kind of like you can't have gray without black and white. If that makes sense. I'm into visuals today. Maybe this is how I express my words, is visuals.
No, I mean, totally. I get it. I get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I think of differences for sure. I think of powerful when I think of similarities. I think when we as a people realize that we're more alike than we are different, there's a power in that, especially even as the Latinx community, or as women, or as minorities, when we realize that we are all in some ways similar, there's a power in taking that realization and empowering ourselves to speak out against wrong, to make our voices heard. We're collectively becoming one single people within our similarities. So I think there's a power in that. So I think powerful. The last word I think of for similarities. What did I say? Differences, powerful. I forget when I go down a little rabbit hole.
Hey, but no, it's okay. That's sort of like because I think with having a conversation like this, there's context to what you're saying, which we can sometimes lose. So yeah, that's totally fine. Tangents, rabbit holes, they're all appreciated on this podcast.
So yeah, I think the last word I think of when I think of the word similarities is, I want to say, I don't know. I'm kind of stuck between two words.
You can say them both. Make it
Okay.
4. That's fine.
Make it to the last one that I missed. So I think of if there was a word for growth and progress, that would be the word I'm looking for. So I think of this because when we have similarities, we also have our differences.
Right.
When we are able to be aware of those and acknowledge them and kind of not talk through them, or accept them, but there's so many different words.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say tolerate them either, because we're all different and we shouldn't just tolerate that.
Accepting it? Would you say acceptance is one thing?
Accepting. You can accept that someone is different without losing who you are.
Right.
But once we've done that, once we've realized that we have similarities and we have differences, and those differences make us unique, there can be room for growth. There can be room for progress. Like I said earlier, like it's crazy to think before the pandemic and before COVID, like we were like, oh no, we can't work from home. We can't do things via Skype or Zoom or anything. But we took our differences and we made it happen. We took what our common goal. So I think of the common goal when similarities happen, and then I kind of just imagine branches off of that, and then I go into all these other words. But the word is similarities, right? Is what you were asking. Yeah. So I think of growth, and I think of progress, and you can't have that without first addressing and working through differences to have similarities. Because if you can't find the common ground, you can't find the similarities, then there is no growth. Because then everyone just wants to argue.
Yeah. So. Yeah. No, I agree. Because I think sometimes, oh, sorry, were you going to say something else?
No, I was going to end it with that's what I think of.
Okay, cool. No, because I was going to say, I think sometimes we lose track of the fact that everybody's wanting the same things. We all want a better life for ourselves. Yeah. We all want more money, sure. We all want a lot of things, and a lot of those things overlap. But it's just that we all take different paths to seek those things.
Yeah.
And that you might agree with some, you might not agree with some, but it's sort of accepting the fact that if we were all the same template, then this life would be boring,
Yes.
We wouldn't have a podcast like this where we could talk about something like this, or you wouldn't have podcasts at all where people could share their perspectives or share their opinions and so on. You wouldn't have anything. Like everything would just feel
gray.
I don't know, right? Like boring. So yeah, like I totally relate to what you just said there. And speaking of relating, the penultimate question on this podcast is, how do you relate to people? You probably already answered this briefly in some way, but to just put that into words again.
How do I relate to people?
Well, what do you think is the best way for you to be able to relate to people?
Oh, okay. So I like words. I think being able to sit down and listen and speak about issues that might be troubling, like a relationship or a friendship.
Right.
So I think I relate to people the most when it comes to communication and speaking. I like to talk a lot, if you haven't noticed. So I think that's what I communicate or relate to the most with people, is that we all want to be heard, and we all want to be felt. We all want to feel like we're being listened to, not only just speaking, but being heard at the same time, because we all have a lot of things to say, but it won't matter the things we're saying if no one is hearing them. And really resonating. Wow. Words are getting hard.
Resonating, yeah.
And resonating with people. So I think that communicator. There it is. That's the word. I relate to people in the sense that I'm a communicator. I like to listen, and I desperately love to be heard. So I can't be heard if if I'm not listening, because then I'm not going to know how to contribute and how to help and what to say. So that's my answer to your question, Prateek.
Got it. Thank you. And that's it for the questions, but a last parting thought before we leave. I'd like for you to leave us with a positive thought or a positive quote or something that keeps you going.
Oh, okay. What positive thing? Oh, I shared something on my Facebook the other day, and I still think about it. It just brings a smile to my face, because I feel like in a society as a whole, we're all super competitive, which it's not always a bad thing. It's good to have drive and ambition, but I think sometimes we lose sight that we're all in a different race for the same finish line. So I think my parting thoughts, or my 2 cents, don't compare yourself to other people, because their joy and their success can be different from yours, but in no way diminishes your success and joy. So don't get lost in the comparison of things. Enjoy what you have in the time that you have it, because someone else can be looking forward to what you have now. So that's my 2 cents. I hope that made sense.
It did make sense, and that's a beautiful way to close us off. Thank you so much, Lisbeth, once again for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. And to everybody who's listening and watching, thank you so much. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching this episode of Perspective Platoon with Prateek. Make sure to follow Lisbeth on her social media accounts and mention in the comment section below some of the things that you found interesting, intriguing, or relatable in this conversation. Make sure to also check the description box below for other sources of information and content that we've talked about today. Like this video, share it around, and subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon to never miss another episode. If you've made it this far, thank you so very much for doing so. I really appreciate you being a part of this journey and being a part of the conversation. It's you, listeners and watchers, that make it all possible, and the guests, of course, and I'm really grateful to you all. So until next time, stay safe, take care, and don't forget to keep your mind open to different perspectives, because you never know, random relatability might just be around the corner.